In today's video, I wanted to take my Gallo 24 signature set with YInMn Blue and specifically focus on that particular colour because I didn't know much about it, but reading on Wikipedia, it's actually quite an interesting colour. Among the many things you can learn about it on Wikipedia, it can also be called Oregon Blue or Mass Blue, which for me was a relief, but when I first came upon it I had no idea how to pronounce it. Some kind people in my comments informed me that it was YInMn Blue, so I'm going with that. It was only discovered in 2009 and it's noteworthy for its vibrant near perfect blue colour. Its properties, it says, it's chemically stable, does not fade and is non-toxic, and it's more durable than alternative pigments such as ultramarine or Prussian blue. So that's good to know. But let's see what it can actually do. So I thought today we would paint these flowers, or I would paint these flowers. You can paint them along with me if you wish. I've just briefly sketched them out just from my mind and not using a reference photograph or anything like that. So they are no particular species. I just thought it would be fun to play around with this colour because it's quite beautiful. As much as I love these palettes with their flats that you can put your colours in, it can be quite awkward when you have it coming right over your painting. So let's see if I can organize myself in a way that works better. Maybe like that. That's going to work better. And it's right there. If it were in the middle, it would be super awkward because then I would have to put it there or far away. But it's nice to be able to have it in the shot. I'm going to use two brushes today. I'm going to use the wet on wet technique. So one of them is going to be for water only, and the other one is going to be for the paint. So let's get into it. I'll just start by putting the water on this first petal. Not putting too much on, but just enough to cover the surface and give the paint somewhere to go. It should only go where the water is, so. Alright, let's do it. So it's very similar to ultramarine at first glance. Just gonna put a full covering on the whole petal first, and then we can try and make some differentiation. So I'm going to make it more concentrated here down the bottom. Pull away some of that at the top. And then when I was playing with it the other day, I discovered that it makes these nice ridges and they kind of stay in a way that I haven't seen happen with other colours. So I was particularly intrigued by that and wanted to play with it for that reason, because just by doing that I've got these lovely marks which I think will become maybe more obvious when it dries, but they're just kind of already in there. And I haven't really seen that with some other colours, but maybe later we'll try a couple of petals in a different colour and see if that happens as well. So I'm going to go on to now this end petal because that is further away. Again, just putting on not so much water, but just enough so that the paint's got somewhere to flow into. It's quite granulating as well, this paint. So again, just making it a bit thicker down here in the corner at the bottom, and then I'll just draw some lines into the top, and then I'll go down between them with my brush and just see if we can create some texture. Again, as I said, these flowers are totally made up, so they probably don't even make sense anatomically, but that doesn't really matter. So wherever the veins would be, now I feel like I can't get any more off on here, so I'm going to put a bit more on top. I should really let those dry before moving on to anything else. So in the meantime, let's move on to the flower on the right. I think just to give some contrast, and while we wait for those petals on the left to dry, I'm probably going to try some different colours in that one. I want to try this Notturno because I believe that's also a granulating colour as well. And it would be interesting to see if it behaves in the same way as the YInMn Blue with these lines that I'm finding. So let's do that. I'll come in again on the dirty water. I actually have a pot of clean water here as well as the one that I'm putting the wet or the dirty paintbrush into. But of course I dunked it in the dirty one, which was not very clever, but it was sitting right there in front of me and my hand just went straight into it. Kind of goes along the line of drinking your paint water instead of your tea or coffee when you have that on the desk. You just automatically reach for the thing that's closest, which is not always the thing that you want. I'm going to go for the Notturno, which is down the other end of my palette, so you won't be able to see that, but never mind. And we'll just bring that straight in there. Wow, that is such a gorgeous purple. I love it. And it's super nice contrast with the YInMnBlue Blue. Okay, so I'll do the same thing. I'll get some more of it and put it down in the bottom. And then I'll wipe off my brush and pull down some of those lines. And yeah, it seems to be doing the same thing, leaving a ridge, which is fantastic. I'm happy about that because I thought it was a special thing that I just found in the YInMnBlue Blue, but if I can do it in these other paints as well, that's great. So let's do another, putting my brush in the clean water this time. Okay, I've got to be careful when I come down the bottom not to touch that paint, otherwise it will run into the petal that we're going to do now, although they're the same colour, so ultimately it wouldn't matter, but all the same. That's just the most beautiful colour. I'm really loving it. So on this one, I'll make it darker on the edge here. And then on the petal, I'll pull away and make some of those stripes going down the petal. So going back to the YInMnBlue Blue, I feel like it's still very wet down here. It's more or less dry here, so I feel like we could probably do this middle petal and potentially that one over there, but I'll just try and stay away from the edges. Also trying to keep my hand off the purple one I've just done over here. So many things to think about, not to mention holding my hands at an awkward angle because I'm filming it and I can't necessarily put it at the angle that would be ideal. And I'll wet this one over here as well because then I can go in and do them at the same time. So I'll make this edge darker. I'm not really thinking about light sources or about making it a realistic flower with the proper shadows and shades. I'm just kind of playing around with it's more like a colour experiment than an actual realistic flower. And I'll come back to that, but I'll just put some colour in this little bit over here. So I'm going to make this outer edge darker and down here at the bottom, and then I'll take away some colour from there and pull down some of those lines. And then the purple flower over here, it seems to be dried quite well, so let's come back to that. Some of the granulation on this purple one seems to have pink bits in it. Underneath it's got a pink purple feel, which is really lovely. Wow, look at that. It's amazing. So I want to make this edge quite dark so it contrasts with that one. And also some navy. There seems to be some dark navy in there. So let's see if I can create some of those lines. Those ones seem, yeah, lots of dark granulation at the base of those lines, and there's a pale bit there, so I'll leave that because I think that's quite beautiful as it is. So I'll let that dry and I'll jump back across to the blue flower on the left, and we've got one final shape. This bit seems to be mostly dry, so I think we can go in quite safely. In any case, it's all the same colour, so it wouldn't be a complete disaster, but it's still nice to maintain an element of control if you can. So up against this edge I'll make it quite dark. Down the bottom as well. And then I'll pull it away from there, try and make that a bit lighter. And pull down those lines. And then up against this edge of this petal. Just giving it a quick touch up there. Barely any paint on the brush, but just covering up those white lines, which I didn't quite get earlier. And over here. And then we'll come back over to the purple one. It looks fairly damp still, this one here, so I'm going to have to be careful with the water going up against the edge, but I'll just plow on and I'll wet that one as well. Okay, last one. Just carefully going up against those edges so that they don't merge into each other. And then I'll put a bit more paint up here and pull down some of those lines. And the last petal over here. I love that pink edge it's got, so I'm going to try not to cover that up. And then I can pop some more purple in here. And this time bring some dark lines. Although I don't like that so much, I think I'm going to take them out again. Or make them a bit less harsh, that's better, disguise them a bit more. They just look like they were coming straight out, like they've been painted on, which did not look great. See if I can just pull a bit out of that. And one more if I can. I feel like I need my paintbrush to be a bit more firm in order to get that line. There we go. I'm going to put on the stems the olive green deep, which is another granulating colour, and it separates with blue. So here's where I run into the flap covering my painting issue, but I'll just leave it there because I think it's better to see the painting than the palette. So let's go down here on the stalk. This one has got loads of water on it, so I'm just going to pick some of that up so that it's wet but not like a big lake. And the same in the middle over here. And then let's go in and get the olive green deep. I'll make them a bit darker on the left hand side. And then just pull a bit away on the right. This one separates out with bits of green, bits of yellow, and bits of blue. Obviously the green comes from the mix of the blue and the yellow, but it's really quite a beautiful paint. So there they are. So that's the YInMnn Blue, the Notturno, and the olive green deep, all by Gallo. I hope you enjoyed that, and I'll see you in the next one.